Long ago, in the land of Canaan, there lived a young man named Joseph. He was the son of Jacob, and he was deeply loved by his father. Joseph had 10 older brothers, but they were jealous of him because their father showed him special favor. Jacob even gave Joseph a beautiful coat of many colors, and this made his brother's anger grow stronger. One night, Joseph had a dream. In the dream, he saw his brother's bundles of grain bowing down before his bundle. Later, he had another dream where the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed before him. When Joseph told his family about these dreams, his brothers became even more jealous. They said, "Do you think you will rule over us? Do you think we will bow down to you?" Their hearts became filled with hatred. One day, Joseph's brothers were taking care of their father's sheep far from home. Jacob sent Joseph to check on them. When his brothers saw him coming, they said, "Here comes the dreamer." They made a terrible plan. They wanted to get rid of Joseph forever. At first, they thought about killing him, but one brother, Reuben, said, "Do not take his life. Throw him into a pit." So they took Joseph's colorful coat and threw him into a deep, empty pit. Joseph cried out for help, but his brothers ignored him. Later, a group of merchants traveling to Egypt passed by. The brothers decided to sell Joseph as a slave. For a few pieces of silver, Joseph was taken away from his home, his father, and everything he knew. The brothers covered Joseph's coat with animal blood and showed it to Jacob. They said, "A wild animal must have attacked him." Jacob was heartbroken. He believed his beloved son was gone forever. But God had not forgotten Joseph. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to a man named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. Even as a slave, Joseph worked faithfully. God blessed everything Joseph did, and Potiphar noticed his wisdom and dedication. Soon, Potiphar trusted Joseph and placed him in charge of his entire household. But one day, Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of doing something wrong. Although Joseph was innocent, he was sent to prison. It seemed like Joseph's life was falling apart again. He had been betrayed by his brothers. He had lost his freedom. Now he was trapped in prison. But even there, God was with Joseph.
The prison keeper saw Joseph's honesty and gave him responsibility over the other prisoners. Joseph continued to serve with a faithful heart. One day, 2 servants of Pharaoh were thrown into prison. They both had strange dreams. Joseph noticed they were troubled and asked, "Why are you sad today?" They told him their dreams, and Joseph said, "The interpretation belongs to God." With God's help, Joseph explained the dreams. One servant would be restored to his position, and the other would not survive. Everything happened exactly as Joseph said. Before leaving, Joseph told the restored servant, "Please remember me when you return to Pharaoh. Tell him I am innocent." But the servant forgot Joseph. For 2 more years, Joseph remained in prison. Then one night, Pharaoh had troubling dreams. He saw 7 healthy cows and 7 weak cows. Then he saw 7 full heads of grain and 7 thin heads of grain. Pharaoh called his wise men, but no one could explain the dreams. Suddenly, the servant remembered Joseph. He said, "There is a man in prison who can interpret dreams." Joseph was brought before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said, "I heard you can explain dreams." Joseph replied, "I cannot do it by my own power, but God will give Pharaoh the answer." Joseph explained that the dreams had one meaning. There would be 7 years of great harvest in Egypt, followed by 7 years of terrible famine. Joseph told Pharaoh to choose a wise leader who could store food during the good years. Pharaoh was amazed by Joseph's wisdom. He said, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh removed Joseph's prison clothes and gave him royal clothing. The slave became a ruler. The prisoner became a leader. Joseph was made second in command over all Egypt. Only Pharaoh was greater than him. Joseph traveled throughout Egypt, collecting grain during the 7 years of plenty. The storehouses were filled. Then the famine came, just as Joseph had predicted. People from many lands came to Egypt to buy food. Far away in Canaan, Joseph's brothers were also suffering from hunger. Jacob sent them to Egypt to buy grain. When they arrived, they stood before Joseph, but they did not recognize him. Joseph recognized them immediately. The brothers bowed before him. Joseph remembered his dreams from many years before. The very dream they had hated was now coming true. But Joseph did not seek revenge. Instead, he tested their hearts to see if they had changed. After some time, Joseph could no longer hold back his emotions. He sent everyone away and cried. Then he said, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" His brothers were terrified. They thought Joseph would punish them. But Joseph said, "Do not be afraid. You sold me into Egypt, but God sent me ahead of you to save lives." Joseph forgave the people who had hurt him. He understood that God had turned his pain into a purpose. Joseph brought his father Jacob and the whole family to Egypt. After many years apart, Joseph and his father were reunited. Jacob cried with joy when he saw his son alive. The young dreamer who was thrown into a pit became a powerful leader. The slave became a governor. The prisoner became a prince. Joseph's story shows that even when life seems broken, God can still be working behind the scenes. Betrayal did not destroy him. Hardship did not defeat him. Waiting did not stop God's plan. Joseph chose faith instead of bitterness, and mercy instead of revenge. His journey from prison to palace became a powerful reminder. God can transform suffering into blessing, and he can use every moment for a greater purpose.